Hello and welcome to the Bold Leadership Story Show, where we talk about experiences shaping exceptional lives. And I have two exceptional lives joining me today on the show. I've got Steve Rubin and Lisa. Lisa, your last name again? I'm sorry.
Locke, Lisa Locke.
Lisa Lott. And Lisa and Steve are with Waves Project. You can see in the background some of the gear from the store, and they're scuba divers. And Waves is an amazing program that we're going to talk about with Steve today, and get into some of the details on the benefits that Waves is producing for our veterans. And it's an amazing volunteer program that Steve and his wife put together several years ago here in Temecula, and it's expanded and grown. And I'm excited to have both you and Lisa on the show today. Steve, welcome.
Thank you very much for having us. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, well, very good. Lisa, how's your day going?
Good. It's busy. Trying
Yeah,
to do some great things here.
awesome. Yeah, well, you started, Steve, your career started in the transportation industry about what, 40 years ago?
About 40 years ago. Yes, sir.
Seems like yesterday, huh?
Um,
Maybe not.
I'm
What
sure.
you and your wife started the Waves project somewhere about 20 years ago now, correct?
No, it was actually 10 years ago.
10 years ago. Okay.
10
All right.
years
So you're
ago.
just coming up on your 10-year anniversary.
Yes,
Congratulations
sir.
on that.
Yes, sir.
So, and you, it's all about scuba diving, which is, of course, SCUBA is an acronym, stands for self-contained underwater breathing apparatus. And that showing my acronym skills here.
You've done some research.
Good job, Joe.
Did a little research. Yeah, I'm actually a scuba diver. I've got my open water certification from Patty. So it's a little bit of a cheat, but love the idea of what you're doing, and I'm excited to show a little bit about it. So what I want to do to kind of get the ball rolling here was to play a quick video, and I've got it up on. I can share my screen, and I've got it up here. Let me share my screen. And what this is, and I wanted Steve for you to kind of walk us through this. Can you see that?
Yes, I believe so.
So it should be starting. So,
Yes. Okay. So here we're out at Catalina. We've got the veteran here is a paraplegic. I believe it was like a T4 injury. And right now what we're doing is we're getting him. This is his first time getting in the water. And so we've got a couple guys here that are going to be a couple dive masters that are going to be carrying him down the stairs. It's kind of an easy little entry to get in the ocean. And then once they get him down there, they'll hand him off to me, and then we'll get him geared up in the water and get him underwater for his first experience. So right now we're making sure everything is good. He's comfortable. They're going to be timing the surge as the surge comes up onto the stairs. We've got a couple of assistants in the water right now, waiting for him. And it's ready to get in.
so how's he feeling about now?
Very anxious.
Okay.
All right. So,
Yeah.
well, what's amazing to me is that that he's never been underwater. Like I said, he's a T4 paraplegic. He's got use of his arms,
Uh-huh.
and he's allowing us to take him underwater. And there's got to be a lot of anxiety there. So it's pretty incredible for what these guys will do to try to overcome what they're going through. And
Phenomenal experience. I mean, I get chills just watching that. I've been to that spot, so I know exactly what that feels like to wait for that wave, that surge to come up, and then you just kind of let the surge take you out, and you float, and it just opens up into this amazing world. And underneath the water right there is beautiful or it's rocks and algae and fish and beautiful scenery going on underwater. So you kind of, for me anyway, you lose perspective of where you are, and the anxiety just melts away.
Yeah, once you get underwater, and the first time I think anybody getting in the water will have that anxiety, the unknown, what's going to happen, especially out here in Southern California, because we have green water, and you really can't see, from when you're looking from the surface into the water, it looks like you're not going to be able to see underwater. But once they get their head underwater, just what you explained, all of a sudden they're looking at fish, kelp, rocks, and it just opens up to 30, 40, 50 feet of visibility. And that's when the calmness comes over. That's when the excitement happens, and that's what hooks you into diving.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's wonderful. So cool that and that gentleman we just watched was a veteran, and he was wounded in service to our country. And how was he selected for this activity?
Our process is that we will train a veteran that has a service-connected injury. We'll take the application. I wish we could say that we could train every veteran, but it's all about funding. And we have a wait list right now. And I remember this is years ago, and I'm just trying to remember his story. We would get on the phone and talk to them, and see what their injuries were, and what their service-connected injury was, and how it came about. And I remember my wife was talking to this young man, and he told her, I'll do anything to get out of this chair. I need to get out of this chair. And at this point in time, this is at the infancy of our program. We were really only working with combat wounded veterans. And we can get into a little bit later about how we kind of transitioned back in about 2014, 15. But we were working with people, amputees, paraplegics, things like that. And, when he's just said, God, I'll do anything to get out of this chair, we realize that once we get somebody underwater, we get them to where they can learn and experience being buoyant.
Now, when you say T4, I know that's is that a spinal injury?
Yes, sir.
So what does that mean? What does that mean exactly?
Probably mid-chest, right above the belly, the spinal cord. So from that joint below there's no physical feelings, movement. So the higher the injury, you have your cervical, thorax, and then you have your lumbar. So, for instance, if somebody has a high injury, a C4, then they're paralyzed from that point down.
Okay.
He was paralyzed from the thoracic lumbar, or the fourth one, thoracic down.
Okay.
So
he has
had
no
movement of his arms. That was about it.
So when he's in the water, that all becomes weightless for him. And he gets like the feeling of freedom and movement.
And the disability now goes away. So with his disability makes him now equal to a non-disabled diver. So now we're able to dive right along together. So normally fins would propel a diver. Well, with him, we put on web gloves. So he would just move his hands.
Okay.
And he would
like a turtle. He can be like a turtle.
And propel himself through the water. Once we got buoyant, now that disability goes away. He's equal to a non-disabled diver. So that's what we knew that going into the program,
Uh-huh.
with the buoyancy and if you had the person that got us really going down this road was a double amputee, and we saw that with him. It's incredible. So the disability is gone.
Okay, so that opens up the possibility then, and obviously you've discovered some therapeutic benefits for this activity, for this kind of injury and these folks, and explain a little bit about how that works, and then I can switch to some of the numbers that you're putting together and the results that you're getting now, the fruits of your labors. So
Yeah.
what is the therapeutic benefit typically that you're seeing?
Well, when we first started, it was only to share our passion of scuba diving with some veterans.
Okay.
But since we've been doing this, we've done 3 studies on our own. We actually had discovered, like we talked about the buoyancy, but we've also discovered that there's oxygen therapy going on, just like you would in an HBOT or a hyperbaric oxygen treatment facility,
Right.
where they take you under so many different, so many atmospheres.
So as the further you're down in the water, the more pressure there is.
Right.
And
the more oxygen.
They call those
molecules
atmospheres, right? So you're getting oxygen actually pushed into your system.
You want to talk about also how, people with injuries, how their use of oxygen?
Yes. Okay. So we're breathing 20.9% oxygen right now as we're having this conversation.
Right.
All right.
That's just out in the ambient at sea level.
That's what we're breathing. All right. So what's interesting is that we breathe in the 20.9, or let's just use 21%. Our body will use about 5% of that oxygen. And then when we exhale 16% of that oxygen. We don't even use it. But our creator, being as great as he is, knew that if we have inflammation, if we have an injury, then our body will then now utilize more oxygen.
Mm.
So if I've got inflammation in my body and I now take in that 21% oxygen, I may only exhale 4% of it, or 3%.
Okay, so you're utilizing more of it. It becomes a more efficient use of the oxygen.
Yes, because the oxygen now heals our body.
Okay.
You know how I equated that to when he told me about this was, I equated it to, you go into the hospital and what's one of the first things they do? They shove that thing up in your nose,
right,
to give you more oxygen.
Uh-huh.
So it made sense to me that oxygen is used to heal or to help you heal.
So now let's take that one step further. Every 33 feet that we go underwater is an atmosphere. So
right.
For instance, if I go 33 feet, the air gets compressed by half.
Right.
But my lung volume still stays the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope I'm going to be able to explain this without getting too deep into this.
Yeah.
But as I now take a breath off of that compressed air that is in my cylinder, I'm breathing now twice the amount of oxygen molecules.
Okay. That makes
sense.
If
I have inflammation or if I have an injury, I'm getting twice as much oxygen than the 21%.
Okay.
All right. So let's say that it's always 21%. So let me back up. I don't want to confuse people here because that was a misstatement. But let's say, and I'm just going to throw this number out. Let's say there's 100 molecules of oxygen in the 21% that we're breathing.
Okay.
Obviously, there's more than that, but we'll use 100 as a benchmark here.
Yeah.
I go underwater. I go 33 feet. Now my air becomes compressed. My volume stays exactly the same that I'm going to breathe out of that tank. But now, instead of only breathing 100 molecules, I'm breathing 200 molecules.
Mm-hmm.
It's still 21% oxygen, but I'm now breathing twice as many. Now I go down to 40, 45 feet. Now it becomes 3. the amount of oxygen or 300. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah,
So
it's
now
like
if
it's like concentrating the mixture and
Mhm.
giving you more oxygen per breath.
Exactly. So what we have learned over the years is that it also translates to post-traumatic stress
How?
and a
How so?
traumatic
How does
brain
that
injury.
work?
Well, because the post-traumatic stress actually has an effect on a part of the brain.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So, and you can do research on this with, I believe, Amen Clinic. This is where we kind of started to figure out what really was happening. But it affects a part of the brain that, and I know you probably heard people talk about, like if you use drug abuse, you'll have holes in your brain. Have you
Right.
ever heard that
Sure.
terminology? Well, what's really happening, there's not a hole in your brain. What's really happening is that part of the brain is injured and blood flow now has reduced. So it shows up like, instead of a healthy brain would show up in color, you got a part of the brain now that is black.
Yeah. So on the
All right.
graph, it shows up
Yeah.
as like looks like a hole, but
Yeah.
it's
So
just
now
not.
with
It's kind of like non-active.
right now with the oxygen therapy, we're going into an HBOT environment or underwater. That oxygen now is helping with that blood flow.
It's like getting pushed in. And is that reactivating some of the brain tissue and giving the brain more function?
It can, absolutely.
That's
The other thing,
incredible.
the other thing that that I've learned since getting more involved here too is with PTSD, the vets talk about the meditative state. And I think you kind of started out saying that when you're underwater, you just get under there. And so that kind of meditative state, the controlled breathing,
Yeah.
the quietness, it quiets the mind. So all of those things contribute to, the vets therapy that have PTSD.
So John Hopkins did a study back in 2014.
Okay.
And before that, like I said, we were working with physically injured veterans. And they were working actually also with wheeled vets. They took 19 vets down to the Cayman Islands. 10 participated in scuba diving. These doctors were neurologists, Dr. Kaplan and Dr. Kennedy.
Okay.
And what they were looking for is they were looking for physical improvements that the water would provide. All right. And that would be like muscle spasticity or bladder sensation or other things like that. So that's what they were looking for.
Okay.
Being under pressure would help these spinal cord injured veterans. And one of the things that as they were tracking was not only the physical effects, but they were emotional and mental effects. And they started their research questioning before they went to the Cayman Islands, and then they finished it 6 weeks after they got back.
Okay.
And one of
So
the things that Dr. Kaplan said is that it was miraculous because every vet that participated in diving, now remember, they're all physically injured, but every vet that participated in scuba diving showed up to an 80% reduction of post-traumatic stress symptoms for up to 6 weeks after they dove. And then that's when we really started to look at, okay, we need to change what we're doing. And we called it back then, and it still is today, the invisible injury. Okay. We changed our
Well, it used to be called like what, shell shock, and they've had
there's
different
been there,
names for it over the years.
yes.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's a real thing. It's absolutely a real thing.
It's a real thing.
So,
And what I like about the program too is not just the effects of diving, but what I've also learned here is a big part of it, especially with those with PTSD, is the camaraderie. Because a lot of vets with PTSD, they start withdrawing and they isolate themselves. And I think that contributes to, that figure that we always hear, 22 vets every day commit suicide. That's over 8,000 vets a year. That's a huge number. So the camaraderie part of it, that doesn't sound like a piece of the therapy, but it is. It truly is, especially for those with PTSD. That's part of the therapy is getting them back engaged, with a group. So that's a big part too.
That's beautiful. So what I'd like to do next, I'd like to pull up your annual report. I've got that up here to share. And you said earlier that some of these numbers had been updated. So maybe we can kind of talk through this. These are from 2022, and you've got some pretty looks like great numbers. Yeah, 350 certifications issued.
This is just last year's numbers.
Okay, so
for the year of 2022,
and what has to get done to get one issued?
Well, for an open water certification, the veteran is spending probably about 40 hours in the program. We spend about 8-9 hours in the pool. That pool is like our simulator, so to speak.
Okay, I've got, let's see, I can pull up some photos. So you guys go get in the pool. There's just some of the groups that you've been done. You do ocean work, barbecue. Trying to find one that's in the pool. Here we go. So you get in the pool and do some.
This is where the training starts. All right. So obviously they're issued academics. They learn about the physics, physiology of being underwater. And then we get them in the water. We get them in the pool and we go over about 23 skills. And those skills are, if this happens underwater, you do this.
Right.
All right. So
it's completely safe.
It's very safe. It's a very safe sport.
Once you know they get to the ocean, they're pretty well ready to go.
Absolutely. And they don't go to the ocean unless they're ready to go.
Okay.
Unless their instructor feels that they're ready and they feel that they're ready. So there's two people that says, I'm ready to get in. I'm ready to go to the ocean. And they're one of them, the student. And they'll do 4 open water dives, and that gives them their certification.
Okay, and an open water dive is what?
Ocean or a lake.
So
something
they've
other
got to
than a
go.
pool.
It's like, let's see. Is it like? Oh, you have.
If you scrolled up,
you have classroom work too.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a significant commitment, and then they're in the water doing. Looks like a lot of fun stuff like this.
That's in Roatan, Honduras. So we take a trip and we do a trip annually down there.
How cool is that? Yeah. That's fun. So then they get their certification.
And Jim, one of the other things, talking about certifications is the vets that go through the program, some of them also continue on and get their instructor certification, which kind of helps to feed the organization with other instructors.
Okay.
And so many of them, want to continue on. They do specialty certifications and get their instructor certification.
And then you're always on the hunt for sponsors.
Always, yes.
So
there's Barbara Rubin, and
okay.
Steve Rubin. So they founded the organization.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So the open water is the foundation. The basic instruction. Here we are, got a class sitting here taking instruction, and they're being evaluated on a skill. And then after that, that's our foundation that we lay. And there's probably about 30 or 40 different specialties that they can take that will help them become better divers or help them a pathway down their interest. All right. So it could be videography, photo. It could be hunting, underwater
Mhm.
hunting. We have divers that go out and spearfish. We have divers go out and take pictures of fish. So it all depends on what their interests are. Then they can pick their pathway of how they want to now interact and what they want to do underwater.
Okay. Very good. So there's lots of options.
Even
And
have diving or,
Yeah, there was a picture back here of
oh yeah.
that was in Florida of going on a wreck.
Mhm.
That was the Adolfo Bush.
which one was that?
Um,
Is that in
you
here?
had it up, and
Yeah. Lots and lots of pictures.
yeah, scroll down some more on that if you wanted to.
While you're looking for that, that brings to mind something else that I think is pretty fantastic about the organization, and that is the connection with the national parks.
Right there.
This
Oh
one?
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Connection with the national what?
Connection with the national parks. So the National Park Service, wherever they have bodies of water and they have to do maintenance on, things that they have or mapping out lakes or
Mhm.
whatever it is, they have connected with our veteran divers to go and help them. Um,
Very
so
cool.
they've what, 7 national parks?
So in the last 5 years, we've done 22 trips to 7 different parks.
Mhm.
Wow.
So and every park has a different need.
Mm-hmm.
And we come alongside their underwater divers and help them reach their goal on that need. It could be buoy maintenance. We just had our women vets come back from Biscayne, their second trip there, and they pull out about 4,000 pounds of debris
Wow.
out of the ocean. So it's an ecological project.
Wow.
We've done 3 trips over to the USS Arizona with oil flow sample rates. We're trying to figure out how much oil or bunker is still on that ship.
Mhm.
We worked alongside of underwater archaeologists at Lake Mead, outside of Vegas,
Mhm.
and mapped a 6.5 acre aggregate plant that was utilized to build the Hoover Dam. And now it's at a place everybody knows that that lake is the lake is dropping and the volume.
Mhm.
And now that area has become very accessible to diving, and the national parks wanted to have a map so that people will know where they're at and what they're looking at. So we come alongside and work with underwater archaeologists there. We have a buoy maintenance program coming up in September and in Lake Michigan at Isle Royale. And then we have a buoy project down in Dry Tortugas at Fort Jefferson in August.
What I think is great about that too is, we call them mission oriented dives.
Mhm.
And, I think that for the vets, there's so many similar correlations between them being in the service and then being a diver. And these mission oriented dives is just one of those. It's a task, it's a purpose, for them. And I think it's just another layer of what they get out of this program. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I mean, someone who, who has served, I think everybody wants to have a purpose in life. And to a large degree, when you're wounded and paraplegic, wheelchair confined, that's taken away from you. Your purpose is definitely changed. And if you like being outside and doing things actively like that, which I would, it would gives you that opportunity to be useful and add value and have a purpose. And so and by itself, I mean, that's wonderful.
Right.
So that's
There's,
fantastic that you
there's all
guys are
these
doing this.
there's all these little nuggets that, sometimes we don't realize or at least for me being newer, just don't realize the impact that it has. But there's all these little nuggets that you find and realize the impact that it has on their life. And I've even had someone tell me that it saved their life, that they could never do enough for this organization because it saved their life. I'm sure Steve's heard that probably
Explain
more
that
times.
for me. What do you mean by that? Saved their life?
So part of my role here is outreach, getting waves, talked about more, and also fundraising because we can't operate without funds.
Right.
And so I'm working on, some events and some fundraising events, and we have some veterans, and they like to volunteer because they're passionate about this program and what the program's done for them. And so there's this one gentleman in particular, and I'll say his name, Ryan, and was talking to him. And every time I say I need help with something or I need something, he raises his hand. And I told him, I said, Ryan, you're you're amazing. Thank you. And you're just always willing to help. And he said, ma'am, I could work every day for the rest of my life for Waves and never repay them for what they've given me. And he said, they saved my life. And I was just like,
so we talked about earlier, the 22 that take their lives. So these are veterans that when they say that, they have contemplated suicide or thought about it. And now that they've gone through the program and all these pieces, the training, and the camaraderie, Lisa talked about the camaraderie. It's different when you're at home, you're isolated and you think you're the only one going through something. But then you go out and you start associating with other veterans and they're saying, I was going through the same thing, or now I'm not an anomaly. Now this is maybe a little bit normal. And, they're feeling better when they get out of the water. And we know that from the studies that we've done. They make new friends. All right. So one thing that we did when we started out Waves is we wanted to make sure that the family was involved. So we train a veteran and a buddy of their choice. It could be a spouse, it could be a child, it could be a battle buddy that they were in the service with, it could be a neighbor down the street. It really doesn't make any difference, just as long as that veteran's a qualifying veteran. But we want them to be able to have somebody to continue their diving with, because diving is a buddy sport. So we didn't want to just train one person, the veteran, and then say, good luck, have fun.
Yeah.
We want them to be able to go out with their wife or their son or their daughter or their friend and continue to get what the diving, the therapy that they so need. All right. So the other thing that Lisa was, when she was talking about being underwater and the distractions that everyday life brings naturally to everybody.
Yeah.
The television, the telephone, iPad, tablet.
Yeah, this silly
everything.
thing.
Yeah, that silly thing, that's gone underwater, right? Yeah. So now you're focused on one thing, and there could be 18 of us underwater, right? It's quiet. Now you start talking to yourself. You start thinking about different things, and you can see people, but you know what? That the light noise, the sounds and everything, it all changes and it becomes very peaceful under there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking back, last time I was at Catalina, I spent some time, we were training, and one activity that our instructor encouraged us to do was to turn upside down, completely upside down, and float. So you picture yourself just turning upside down and crossing your legs and just floating and relaxing. And if you do that really well, you'll just float and you just kind of go back and forth with the waves. And it's and I did that. It was like so incredible. And this little fish, sailfish comes swimming past me, and he's kind of looking at me like, dude, what are you doing? It was really a moment. So yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So one thing that's great is that these veterans are engaging and they're actually coming under the intention that I'm going to have fun, I'm going to learn something new, and they're actually coming into a point of they're actually coming into a therapy session without going to a therapy session.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is the remarkable thing about this.
Kind of sneaks up on you.
Scuba diving is just a platform. There's all kinds of things that we're doing behind the scenes that brings that therapy to them.
Mm.
You know, we talked a few of them right now, but they're not going to a meeting at the VA with 15 other vets sitting around a table trying to talk about what's bothering them.
Mm.
They're going out there and they're getting into the water. The ocean is a tremendous healer. It's a tremendous healer. And they're going through this process, and they're gaining a skill. They're great. They're gaining a skill with it's another sport, but what they don't realize is that every time they get in the water, they're getting therapy until they go home, and then 2 or 3 weeks, 4 weeks pass, and then their wife calls us and says, "Can you get him back in the water?" Because he's a different person when he comes home after diving. And we started hearing that from day one. And, you know, when we first started this, we didn't realize or understand what was going on until we started to try to pull this apart and try to figure out what was happening. But we hear it time and time again. We have a video up on our website where one of the veterans was going on one of these mission-oriented trips to Lake Mead, and his daughter had made a little card, you know, like little Crayolas, and it was like a little book.
Okay.
And the last things that she wrote on there is that when my daddy comes home, he's happy.
Oh.
Mm.
So
And that's
beautiful.
And in the
Yes.
video, he said that he said that she nailed it. She nailed it. Diving makes daddy happy, you know. And he said, I think he said in the video something to the effect of diving makes him a better husband, a better father, just a better person in general. That's the effect diving has on him. It you know, helps to, you know, get rid of a lot of that noise in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Lots
what's
of
your
good stuff.
biggest, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just said lots of good stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. What's your biggest challenge right now?
Funding.
too many vets, not enough money.
Mhm.
And, you know, we have waiting lists of people trying to get in. We're currently now trained not only here in Southern California,
Mhm.
but in Southern Texas, out of Houston, and then we train in South Florida. So,
Okay, so you got the San Diego, Texas, and Florida going now, right? Okay. Wow.
the problem with that is that every time we train veterans, they tell friends. So, you know, they tell their therapists at the VA. Now the VA is starting to tell other veterans, hey, you know what, you might want to check this out. And their rec therapists or their mental health therapist is telling them, you know what, I've been hearing a lot of good stuff about what scuba diving is doing for a lot of our patients. You might want to check it out. So we start getting, the more we do, the more inundated we get. So again,
What are
like I said,
some of the I guess the benefits if for a sponsorship, someone, you know, who owns a business or a corporation, what are some of the benefits to them? And maybe if it's a corporation, the shareholders that they might expect to see help while helping out the Waves project.
other than saving lives,
I was going to say the same thing. The benefit is literally, you are saving a life. Truly. I've seen it and talked to them firsthand, and, you know, they've said it saved my life. So, you know, out of that over 8,000 veterans that take their life every year, you make an impact on that number. You know, these are people that have stepped up and served our country and defended us and fought for our freedom, and they are suffering in whatever way. So, the impact is saving their lives. But I would also say, any company that wants to, is looking at a sponsorship, we are always so immensely grateful for any sponsorships that we get. Especially now it's a little bit tougher. So, and we understand that, companies want to probably get their name out there. So we are absolutely willing to, on every platform that we have, thank them profusely for supporting the organization, for saving lives. And if there's some major donors, then we talk separately about something that we can do specific for them. We have talked about, putting a company's name on our Waves truck that we drive to every dive, things like that. So there's opportunity there for companies, if they want to do some sort of sponsorship like that, and understanding they have marketing dollars and perhaps want to get their name out there that they are supporting us, which is huge.
Beautiful. Okay. Excellent. Did you have something to add to that?
I do. I kind of wanted to do a correlation. We talk about the veteran getting out of the house, the veteran not being secluded anymore. So what happens is the more that they seclude themselves, the more they disengage from society. The more they disengage from society, the more they get secluded. All right. So it's kind of like a spiral funnel, and it's easy now, I think, for even non-military people that haven't served to understand this, to look back at 2020 and saw when the whole world shut down, how that made us feel, being shut down, locked in, and not being able to go anywhere.
Yeah, not a fun situation.
It wasn't a fun situation, and we saw the suicide rates increase then, not only with adults, but also children that were being secluded. They were not able to play with their friends. They were not going outside. So think about how we felt then, and that's how that veteran now feels until they find something. And I guess that'd be my message to a veteran that is suffering, that may be listening to this. You know what? You may not be a water person. It may not be scuba diving, but find something that will get you out of the house, right? So we partner up with other vet organizations that kind of have the same kind of results that we have. And if we have a veteran that comes here and is just, this is just not for me, we will send them down to another organization and say, you got to do something, get out of the house. And you said it earlier, it's have a purpose. So we have 4 pillars. It's obviously the training. It's the equipment that we use. It's the camaraderie, and then it's giving back or serving back through the National Park Program or other things that we do. We do beach cleanups. We do other things that are mission-oriented functions that get you out of the house. So get out of the house, and it gives you purpose. So those 4 pillars then come together and give you a purpose in your life, whether it is riding horses, fishing, hiking. Get out of the house.
Beautiful. Great message. Well, our time, man, these go so quick. I've got one more question. You got time for one more question?
Absolutely.
And since this is the Bold Leadership Story Show, I always end with this question for everybody that's come on the show. Taking a look at I usually do it from interviewing one person, so I've got the benefit of both of you here. Let's take a look at just the Waves program. And during the course of that program, what was the boldest leadership decision that you made, and what were the consequences of that?
Probably starting Waves, because this wasn't intentional.
Okay.
I met a young man that in 2012 lost both of his legs due to an IED explosion. He found out I was a scuba instructor. Waves wasn't around, and he wanted to get certified. And
he was a friend of theirs. It was one of their family members, and that was how they connected.
Okay.
yeah, so it was a guy that I grew up with, and it was his daughter's husband. And we kind of hooked up there. But once he did it, he started telling friends.
Uh-huh.
And the friends were calling and saying, can I do that? Can I do that? And really the decision was, it was kind of forced upon us. I don't know if it was a great leadership decision, but one thing that we knew,
Mhm.
we couldn't afford personally to fund it. So we said, you know what, let's start an organization. Let's get our 501c3 so that we can start accepting donations and see where this thing will go. And it hasn't stopped since. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger every year.
Ah, that's beautiful. Yeah, it sounds like this conversation could continue for longer, but unfortunately we need to kind of wrap it up. Thank you so much for spending time with me on the show today. I'd like to leave everybody with some inspiration. So if you were speaking with a brand new veteran who knew nothing about waves, not a brand new veteran, but someone who didn't know anything about waves, someone who was injured, how would you introduce waves and the benefits to them?
I guess we're going to probably go back and talk about some of the things that we've already talked about. And that is to become a part of something that gets you out of the house.
Yeah.
All right.
Get your tail out of the house. Let's get some stuff going.
The scuba diving is just the hook.
Yeah.
Right. So it's kind of like a bait and switch thing going on here. We put out that we are training people to dive, and then they come and then they see what the effects that it's positively having on their lives, their family life, their vocational lives. All right. So I'll give you a story of a vet, and this vet just happens to be close to my heart because he's my nephew. Got back from Iraq. He was a striker driver, sat at home, didn't do anything. Got out, did some diving, got to talk to people, got involved. Now is running 3 centers for the Boys and Girls Club. So here's a person that did not know what he wanted to do, sat at home and didn't do anything, but just because he got involved in a program, learned how to overcome and get involved with the community.
And I call that the ripple in the pond effect. You know, you never know how far these things extend. And I would add to this that, you know, you talked about advice to give people or what they would say. I would also say sometimes the vet is so withdrawn that they can't step outside of themselves and make that first step to get themselves out of the house. And some of the stories that I've heard is that it's the spouse that signs the vet up, or the spouse that tells them to go try this. So sometimes it's those around the vet that maybe if you're hearing this and you're hearing about waves, maybe this could be something that they try. So sometimes it's family members or friends around the vet that we need to help them. We need to help them to get them out of the house.
Very good. Well, thank you both for the time. Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate
it.
We'll talk again.
All right.
Take care.
Have a good night or a good day. All right. Bye-bye.